something begins to shift, not with noise, but with stillness. You stop laughing at the same empty jokes. You withdraw from the rituals of belonging. It's not rebellion, it's recognition. Recognition that you can no longer betray yourself just to be included. Those around you won't name it, but they feel it. A discomfort when you speak plainly, a hesitation when you no longer flinch at silence. What's happening is not arrogance, it's the early stage of liberation. Nietzsche didn't believe strength could be gifted. It had to be earned, carved from disillusionment and sculpted through solitude. The world doesn't fear loud men, it fears those who have become immune to approval. To build a mind that unsettles others is not to become violent, it is to become ungovernable. To no longer ask what is expected, but what is true. And that truth, once embraced, cannot be undone. If you feel something tightening in your chest, if you've started to sense a fracture between who you pretend to be and who you might become, then this path is not foreign to you. It's already begun. Keep walking. But understand this, the further you go, the fewer will follow. That is not failure, that is the sign you're getting close. 1. Evolution begins with discomfort. Mental evolution does not start with ambition. It begins when the familiar becomes unbearable. People won't say you're changing. They'll joke, they'll smile with unease. But what they feel is clear. They're no longer sure how to relate to you. Your clarity disrupts their rhythm. You challenge their inertia without speaking a word. What makes you frightening is not aggression, it's independence. You're no longer synchronized with the collective trance, and that, to most, feels like betrayal. Discomfort, at its core, is not a signal of danger. It is often a sign of divergence. You are stepping off the map. The rules that guided others no longer fit you, and in that dissonance, you begin to hear your own voice. You are not lost. You are unlearning the directions to a place you no longer want to go. This is not a phase. It is not a midlife crisis or a youthful rebellion. It is the start of something permanent, the abandonment of borrowed identity. Those around you who still rely on that borrowed script will feel threatened, not because you attack them, but because your freedom makes their dependence visible. So expect resistance, not from enemies, but from friends, not from strangers, but from those who once called you familiar. And do not mistake their discomfort for your guilt. You owe no apology for becoming awake. There is an invisible thread that tethers most people to their past, an emotional umbilica, cord that keeps them tied to old patterns, outdated beliefs, and the safety of conformity. When you begin to cut that thread, you are not simply shifting behavior. You are altering your entire orientation to existence. And that shift doesn't make others curious. It makes them afraid, not of you, but of what your transformation suggests about their stagnation. They may say things like, "You've changed," as if it's a flaw. They may suggest you're becoming distant, cynical, or too serious. But what they mean is, you've stopped needing validation. You've stopped performing. And in doing so, you've stopped being predictable. Predictability is the comfort food of the collective mind. It makes people feel safe. When you step out of that frame, they lose their reference point. Your independence becomes a mirror, and most people are terrified of what it reflects. The real question isn't why they react. It's whether you allow their reaction to pull you back. Evolution requires iris shedding, not just thoughts, but company. And sometimes the people you must release are the ones who helped you survive a former version of yourself. But survival is not the same as expansion. You are no longer here to survive, you are here to rise. 2. Pain is the catalyst, not the enemy. Nietzsche never romanticized suffering, he respected it. Pain in his world is not a misfortune. It's the raw material from which you carve your identity. When you stop begging life to be gentle and start demanding yourself to grow stronger, something shifts. You no longer see breakdowns as failures, but as signals. Something in you is outgrowing its container. It's not comfort, but confrontation that refines a man's mind. And if your path lacks chaos, it likely lacks transformation. Pain tears through illusions. It rips off the masks we wear to be liked, to be approved, to be comfortable. It exposes the scaffolding, and if you dare to stand amid that collapse and not run, you begin to see what you're truly made of. People avoid pain because they've been taught it must be avoided. But Nietzsche saw something else. He saw pain as the furnace, the trial by fire, not for punishment, but for purification. That doesn't mean seek it. It means stop fleeing it. Stand inside it. Let it teach you. The world offers 1,000 anesthetics, entertainment, distraction, noise, but they only delay the inevitable. The reckoning comes when you're alone, when no one answers, when your questions echo back. If you can stay present in those moments, not numb but alert, your mind will forge something few ever experience: self-possession. There is a hidden clarity inside suffering, a brutal kind of awareness that is only accessible when your comfort is gone. When the support structure you leaned on collapses, you learn the difference between strength and reliance. Most people never get that lesson. They numb the pain, postpone it, cover it with busyness or spiritual platitudes. But those who lean into the storm, who walk through it instead of around it, become something rare. They become trustworthy, not to others but to themselves. And when you trust yourself to face agony without flinching, no outside force can shake you. Pain is not the problem. It is the invitation. It is the teacher. And it never arrives without a lesson worth the cost. 3. When no one is watching, you begin to build. The mind gains strength in privacy, not the kind of privacy where you hide, the kind where you confront. No applause, no echo, just silence and the weight of your choices. Nietzsche understood that the strongest individuals are not praised. They are forgotten while they build. The collapse of belief in divine order isn't tragedy. It's release. You stop waiting for permission. The heavens stay silent and you finally understand. Responsibility begins where excuses die. When there are no instructions, no savior, no system to lean on, something terrifying happens. You become the architect. There is no blueprint, only your will and the courage to test it. In this isolation, there is risk, but also unparalleled freedom. You stop being a subject in someone else's story. You start becoming the author of your own. This isn't metaphor, it is muscle, built decision by decision, day by day. When no one claps, when no one outchecks, when no one validates, and yet you continue. Not because it is easy, but because you can no longer stomach the alternative. Most people abandon this phase. They panic in the silence. They miss the spotlight. They forget why they started. But if you can stay the course, if you can remain committed in solitude, you'll discover a secret. The strongest minds are not built by inspiration. They are built by consistency. True construction begins in moments of stillness. When external affirms your effort, and you push forward anyway. That moment defines the kind of foundation you're laying. You are not building for applause. You are building to last. You begin to choose difficulty over convenience, depth over noise, solitude over shallow validation, and slowly your decisions form a fortress, one that cannot be stormed by opinion or trend. This is how inner empires are built, brick by unseen brick. Your work will go unnoticed for a long time, but one day it will speak, not loudly but clearly. And those who tried to define you by your past will have no language for what you've become. 4. The Overman is a decision. Nietzsche's Übermensch is not mythology, it's instruction. He is not perfect. He is untethered. Guilt, shame, obedience, they do not steer him. He operates on a code forged in solitude. You don't need to change the world. You need to stop borrowing your soul from it. The overman imposes form on chaos. He doesn't look for answers, he creates direction, and in doing so, he becomes untouchable, not because he's immune to pain, but because pain no longer dictates him. The overman does not seek consensus. He does not soften his thoughts to be palatable. His values are not molded by popularity. He is fierce not because he dominates others, but because he refuses to be dominated by illusions, and that refusal alone makes him a lightning rod in a culture addicted to masks. To become such a figure, one must endure the collapse of previous selves. You must kill the persona you built for others. You must mourn the loss of who you thought you needed dead to be, and in that funeral, a new force emerges. Not cleaner, not kinder, but truer. It is not gentle, but it is real. And it is from this realness that the mind begins to harden into something formidable. Not cruel, just exact, just unflinching. That is why people fear it, not because it harms, but because it doesn't bend. The overman is not born in reaction. He is born in initiation. He is not forged by conflict alone, but by choosing not to be defined by it, where others find themselves in contrast to enemies. He defines himself in alignment with his own inner standard. And that standard is not static. It evolves because he evolves. The overman is never finished. He is never fixed. His center is fluid but never hollow. He speaks with authority not because he seeks it, but because he has shed dependency on external reinforcement. He is not looking for a crowd. He is looking for clarity. The fewer voices he allows inside his mind, the stronger his own becomes. Most people are built on borrowed blueprints, copied ideals, second-hand truths, mass-produced values. The overman builds from nothing, not in nihilism, but in creation. He does not inherit meaning, he engineers it, and the structure he builds becomes too solid to collapse, even under doubt. His will is not loud, it is consistent. He does not need to announce his growth, his presence carries it. You will know when you meet someone who has touched this level. They do know. T rush. They do not react. They do not explain themselves to make others comfortable. They simply move with a calm intensity that unsettles the shallow. This kind of mind is not for sale. It cannot be hijacked by advertisement, shame, or praise. It no longer moves in response to bait. That stillness, rooted, alert, impenetrable, is the signature of the overman. And yet, for all his strength, he does not seek control. He seeks alignment. He is not obsessed with power over others. Youve is obsessed with the integrity of his own being. The only conquest that interests him is self-conquest. You do not become him by reading philosophy. You become him by standing alone in front of your weakness and not looking away. You become him by choosing the harder path again and again, even when no one notices, even when no one follows, especially then. The overman is not exceptional because he has no fear. He is exceptional because he no longer obeys it. 5. The price of possessing yourself. Possession of self is a quiet revolution. You won't be celebrated for it. You'll be abandoned. And that's the test. The world doesn't exile you violently. It simply stops recognizing you. You speak in a different rhythm. You see patterns others deny. And you start to value your solitude more than shallow company. This isn't arrogance. It's precision. It's recognizing that noise weakens signal, and most connections are noise. The solitary path is not noble, it is necessary, it is not glamorous, it is brutal. But in it lies the seed of unshakable identity. You stop dressing your thoughts in politeness. You stop editing your instincts to fit moods. Your solitude becomes your shield, and slowly that solitude becomes your sanctuary. A place where clarity sharpens, where distractions die, where the self stops being a concept and becomes a center of gravity. Few have touched this place, fewer have stayed, but if you remain long enough, your presence starts to speak louder than your words. You no longer need to prove. You simply are, and that is the most unsettling power of all. But solitude is not always quiet. At times it screams. The absence of others can amplify doubts. It can echo fears that once hid beneath distraction. In that echo chamber, your own voice either becomes clearer or collapses. And that's the crucible. Most turn back here. They rush into noise again, desperate to not feel the weight of their own existence. But if you stay, something else begins to rise. A deeper rhythm, a pulse that's entirely your own, not influenced by opinion, not shaped by social weather. It emerges from the bones of silence, and with it, a strange peace. Not because life becomes easier, but because you've stopped needing it to. When Nietzsche spoke of isolation, he wasn't suggesting exile for its own sake. He understood that some distances must exist to preserve essence. Not ever. Yon can walk with you. Not everyone should. The clearer your mind becomes, the more sensitive you grow to spiritual pollution. And it's not superiority, it's necessity. You become protective of your energy, of your time, of the thoughts you allow to linger. You no longer entertain debates that drain. You no longer tolerate relationships built on mutual delusion. The fewer people around you, the fewer distortions within you. And when people say you've changed, they're right. You've stopped diluting yourself to be digestible. You've stopped showing up where your presence isn't respected. You've chosen essence over access. And that is the most terrifying decision the average mind can witness. 6. When you refuse to shrink, you threaten the system. Society does not tolerate brilliance in isolation. It tolerates compliance in numbers. Nietzsche saw this as the hidden tyranny of the ordinary. It's not the dictator you must fear. It's the silent majority that scorns the unorthodox. The crowd demands humility, but what they mean is obedience. If you do not dim your light, they will call you dangerous. And they're right. You are dangerous to their illusion of equality, to the myth that strength should apologize. They won't burn you. They'll ignore you. They won't jail you. They'll mock you. They won't confront your truths. They'll drown them in trivialities. And this is how mediocrity survives, by never confronting what exposes it. Do not make the mistake of assuming the crowd is passive. It isn't. It's precise in its punishments. It will isolate your voice. It will dilute your difference. And if you let it, it will make you forget why you ever stood out in the first place. Refuse it, not with shouting, but with presence, with persistence, with the quiet, daily refusal to be diluted. That alone is defiance. That alone is revolution. The system cannot digest the individual who no longer needs its validation. He is immune to shame, immune to reward. He obeys only what aligns with his truth, and that makes him unpredictable, which is the one thing the system cannot manage. Most rules are not laws, they are norms, agreements among the tie. Red. When you reject them, you aren't just disobeying. You are revealing their hollowness. That exposure is your threat, not your strength, not your ambition, but your refusal to be numb. And when you no longer seek belonging, the system loses its grip. It cannot seduce you with comfort. It cannot frighten you with rejection. You belong to no one. And that, in a world obsessed with groups, makes you monstrous. But monsters are only monsters to those who cling to illusions. To the rest, they are liberators. 7 mental weapons are forged in fire, not bought. Strength is not a trait, it is a consequence. A mind that terrifies doesn't come from affirmations or books. It comes from scars. The more you've survived without surrendering your values, the sharper your thinking becomes. Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted thinkers who could endure the collapse of borrowed meaning and not beg for it back. If you can live without applause, endure without validation, and create without consensus, you have already begun. The weapons of the mind are not visible. They are not handed to you. They are formed in hours of questioning, in days of disorientation, in years of inner rebellion. And when they finally appear, they do not make you louder. They make you still. Still enough to observe clearly. Still enough to act deliberately. Still enough to resist every temptation to perform. That is what makes you dangerous. You are not seeking power. You are power. Mental weapons are PR, rescission tools. They are honed through contradiction, through being wrong and revising, through holding tension without needing instant clarity. They are earned when you delay gratification, when you let go of the need to be seen, and instead focus on becoming undeniable. You don't win battles with volume. You win them with stillness. The stillness that sees, assesses, and strikes only when necessary. That stillness is not passive, it is poised. It is restraint with teeth. The mind that terrifies isn't brash. It is disciplined. It holds fire but doesn't burn without aim. It recognizes manipulation and doesn't flinch. It recognizes temptation and doesn't bow. And here is the truth few admit. Every time you stay silent when you could boast, every time you wait when you could rush, every time you choose reality over indulgence, you are sharpening a blade no one can see. One day that blade will speak, and it will not ask permission. By the time they ask what changed in you, you'll already be too far gone to explain it. You won't be able to name the moment your mind stopped needing permission. It didn't happen all at once. It was 1,000 choices made in silence, 1,000 tiny refusals to betray what you saw, what you knew, what you felt. That is how strength is built, not with declaration, but with discipline. You will be misunderstood, misread, mistrusted. They will call you distant, cold, difficult, but that's only because you've stopped folding. You've stopped shrinking to fit narratives written by weaker men. And now your very presence speaks what your words do not. That you've left the realm of easy answers. That you've decided clarity is worth more than company. Nietzsche never wanted you to become accepted. He wanted you to become undeniable. So when you begin to feel like an anomaly, remember, it means you're no longer adjustable. They can't shape what you've made solid. And that, is why they fear you, not because you're cruel, but because you're free.